Hello, my name is Scott Flacco, and I'm going to be talking about my PRT 266 manager interview. For that interview, I interviewed Brian Edmonds. He is the co-founder of the 288 Group, a resource agency that focuses on sports and entertainment properties. Um, they are based out of Richmond, Virginia, so I had to do mine over email. Um, so I'll just be basically reading the questions and then giving the responses that Mr. Edmonds gave to me. Fortunately, Mr. Edmonds is a good family friend, so I did have to cut some of the stuff out of his answers because it wouldn't really make sense to the class, and that's also why a lot of what he says, the nature of our conversations, are very personal, more so than I guess a traditional interview with a manager would be. So I started off by asking if there was anything in college that he did to really differentiate himself from the rest of the pack, I guess you would say. And he responded with somewhat. I had some small leadership roles, like being on the executive board of my fraternity, and I helped organize a small 5K. But aside from that, I didn't do too much else. Which I thought that was pretty interesting. That he's a very successful guy. It didn't really seem like he did much to put himself out there in college. Then asked, how many sport management related experiences or jobs did you have before you graduated? And he said only one. I know you'd said at State they suggest 3 to 5, but UNC doesn't have a sports management major, so I never got that information. But then he did go on to say that he strongly recommends having as many as you can before you graduate. And yes, unfortunately, he did go to UNC. I then asked, were there any courses you took in college that you feel really helped you in the real world? And this gave him quite a good laugh. And he said some courses like accounting were certainly useful, and I learned a lot. But I learned a lot more from internships and experiences than in classes, which really speaks to the whole having 3 to 5 experiences before you graduate. Then I moved on to his early career at Octagon, and so I asked, when you first started at Octagon, how was the environment for a new employee? He said, the environment was great. I didn't have any issues transitioning from college to this job because they were so welcoming and they understood that I was new, so it may take a little bit for me to get situated and comfortable with my role there. I then asked what his role was specifically, and he said he worked with corporate marketing initiatives. So basically what I did was help athletes that we represented find new ways in corporations to market them. For instance, I was essentially the middleman between Michael Vick and EA Sports in 2003 when he was on the cover of Madden 2004. And I then asked if there were any major challenges to working with big-name athletes, specifically like John Elway, somebody he said he had worked with. And he said personally he never had any trouble working with the athletes that he helped, but he knew some of his co-workers had pretty miserable experiences with some of the athletes they helped. And he said in regard to John's, he was probably one of the easiest clients that he's ever helped, and he said that Mr. Elway is quite possibly one of the nicest people you could ever meet. I then asked what his favorite project was that he worked on at Octagon, and he said that his favorite was working with Michael Vick in EA Sports for the Madden cover. He said he got to go out to EA Sports headquarters with Michael Vick, and he got to watch them do the whole process of putting Mike Vick in a video game, which he said was probably one of the coolest things he's ever gotten to do. And I went on to ask if in Octagon his managers adapted their style of management to what best fit his style of work. And he said, absolutely, I'm a very hands-on guy, and my boss clearly understood that, so he always made sure to let me try something once or twice before I actually started working on it. And he went on to say, it also really helps that my boss had incredible personal skills. He could talk to anyone, anywhere, at any time, and make them feel important. Then asked how Octagon influenced his future endeavors. And he said it gave him boatloads of experience, and he felt his time at Octagon really helped get to where he is today. Also gave him some of the best connections in the sports marketing industry that he actually still uses to this day. Um, and then I went to ask about his time working for the CAA, and I just asked what his main duties were. And he said his main duties were with corporate development within the sponsorship procurement department. So he helped them plan what they wanted to do and how they're going to go about doing it. And he also worked, obviously, in that department, so he helped with the actual sponsorship procurement. And he went on to say, so when he gave his stepson Brian and myself passes to the CAA basketball tournament 2 or 3 years ago, he said that the whole time when we didn't see him, he was running around greeting sponsors, making sure that they had all the accommodations they wanted and such. And then I moved on to why he started his own resource agency or marketing firm. And he said he felt like he wasn't doing what he was supposed to. He just didn't want to work for anybody else, didn't want to have to follow anybody else's rules, wanted to make his own. And I thought it was pretty interesting. He said that he saw some great opportunities within the Richmond area that nobody was capitalizing on. So he decided that he wanted to be the one to take advantage of them, which I thought was pretty smart. I then asked what were some of the challenges he faced while starting the 288 group, and he said probably one of the biggest challenges was just figuring out where to start. He had never started his own business before. He said he hadn't really taken any entrepreneur classes in college. He took the one mandatory one for his business major. But aside from that, he really had no idea where to start. He did say, though, luckily his former partner who helped found the group had also helped start another business in Richmond, so she had a lot of experience in that, and that it certainly helped him make the transition much easier. And then, so I asked, what were some of the most rewarding things about starting the 288 group? And he responded with seeing it grow and how far they've come. He said it's amazing to him that just 3 short years ago, it was just him and Sarah, the other co-founder, trying to figure out how in the hell they were going to get clients and partners. And then he said, now look at us. We're a pretty successful company. And then I asked what his favorite aspect of running the 288 group is. And he said, seeing the event come together. I love watching our partners at an event be amazed at our quality of work. Plus, it doesn't hurt that I get to do some pretty cool things like ride along with Elliott Sadler or get to play Independence Golf Course for free, which is a local course up in Richmond. So then I asked what was involved with business development in regards to sports and entertainment properties, because that's one of the big things that the 288 group says that they're involved with. And he said it was pretty much the same thing as what he did with the CAA. He just assisted with he assisted properties with the organization and planning of what they wanted to do and how to effectively go about doing that. And then I moved on to more just general work-related questions. So I asked if he's found it difficult to keep up with changing technologies or communication platforms within the firm. And he said that it's really not as hard as you would think it was. He has some really good employees who help him stay up to date on what's going on, and also his stepson Brian always makes sure to keep him posted on what's going on with technology. And then I asked what some important skills and qualities were for somebody working in his field to have, and he said obviously there are quite a few, but some of the main ones would be great communication skills. And he said organization is incredibly important, especially like with his company, they're dealing with multiple clients at once, so keeping up with that. And then he said creative thinking, which I thought was pretty interesting. He said it really helps because it's a great way for you to distinguish yourself from other companies who do very similar things. And that struck me as an interesting answer, because that's not really something you would think would be at the forefront of somebody's mind when you ask about important qualities or skills, which I think it really shows the 288 group is going out of their way to do new and creative things. And then, this was more of a personal question for myself. I asked if he found it necessary and or helpful throughout his career to have a strong base knowledge of accounting, just because I'm not good at accounting and don't look forward to taking those classes. And he had a pretty good laugh at this question and said, I feel like you don't want to hear this, but yes, I found it to be incredibly necessary, and not just with my business, but also in everyday life. And he said, it's never a bad thing to know how money is moved and used within your company and within daily life. And then I asked how he stayed on top of news and developments in the sports management world, and he said he subscribes to the Sports Business Journal, and recommended that everybody in our class subscribe to that as soon as we can as well, or look for it in the school's library. And he said that he also attends or has employees attend workshops and seminars to make sure that they're up to date on the most effective methods for marketing and such. And then my last question was if he had any advice to upperclassmen in the sports management or management in general programs looking to enter his field. And he said he knows that around this time of year seniors will want to stop putting in full effort, and he said you really can't let yourself get into that mindset. He said, personally, I wish I had tried much harder my senior year because that extra boost to my GPA could have made the difference in how much my starting salary was. I know you probably hear this all the time in your classes, but also get out and network as much as possible. It will almost never hurt you to introduce yourself to a major player in a company, which I thought was very interesting. But overall, I thought this was a good interview, and it was a pretty good experience getting to really pick the mind of somebody who's been very successful within the sports marketing industry and who's had a lot of experience doing pretty much exactly what I want to do once I graduate. And it's a really good connection to have in my back pocket for when I graduate. Thank you.